was born here on November 11th, 1929. I was born in a house right over that way, probably near where the end of the clearing is. And if my memory serves me right, when my dad had to do patrols, he left the station and I would follow him. And you'd go out to that point where I think the clock was that you had to punch. And I used to walk around with him. I enjoyed it. I was telling Mary that I have twin sisters that were involved in each other, and I was kind of by myself, so I was a tomboy. I can remember being in the lookout, cutting across the island to go play with the Kincaids, who his dad was at the lighthouse at the time. I did a lot of things that a little 7-year-old girl wouldn't normally do.
And of course, there was always a watch. And when I was about 2/3 of the way down, I could hear coming after me, but I got to the door, got inside, and right next to the door there were big coils of rope laying. And I jumped into one of the coils thinking they'll never see me. But it was Arnold Jacobson. You remember Arnold?
Yeah, Arnold's my cousin.
Arnold scooped me right up, made me march back, and that was it.
He was a big guy. I bet he frightened you. Something else that maybe many of you don't know, probably Dick does, but right over here about with on the other side of this first group of birch trees, there was a big, like a story-and-a-half building. It was built into the side of the hill, and there were garage doors that opened up, and up above was a kitchen and a big mess hall. My dad and the people called it the bum shack.
Yes.
And for the people that lived, not only was it where they met for eating and get-togethers and playing their accordions and guitars or whatever, but it became a kind of a meeting place for the women and the children too to go when those who weren't on watch could do a little socializing. I'm not sure why they called it the bum shack.
Well, later on they had a pool table, but this is where they could go if they didn't have anything to do and they were off. So they were bums.
Okay.
Oh goodness, Dick, that building was painted almost every year. You could always smell paint somewhere on Plum Island. The little building behind this was a paint locker, or if you wanted a baseball glove or a bat or something, you went in there and all that stuff was stored there. But this is a mess.
I had families that were on the mainland would bring tents over, and they could put a tent up and live in the tent for the summer, and that gave us more kids to play with and more women to socialize, and it was really a fun time.
Well, you know, she was here and gone way before I was. When I was here as a child, there were quite a few children, because Jepsons, Donna, and Willie, I suppose, and that Elmer Sorensen with the Sorensens, the kids there, little Elmer, I guess, Snooky. And we all got taken, when the older kids got taken to school on the old Bull, which is out at Jackson Harbor now. That's the first boat I remember, because my dad held me up and I could, at the dock, steer it. And the reason I remember it is because it has those round portholes. And then, of course, they got that famous 40-footer, the one-off boat that was here for years, and which is now where I guess we tracked it to Escanaba. Was built to be able to break ice. Oh. There's a famous picture of it, is run up on the ice. And that's what they did. They ran up on the ice and hoped that the weight would break through the ice.
And they would practice life-saving. They would shoot out the breeches buoy, the ring, and somebody would pull them in, because that went by the wayside. But it was kind of interesting that I do remember seeing that.
And I remember once I remember being up in the breeches buoy, which the line was probably 15 feet high, and you would go from one to the other. And I was sitting on my dad's lap, and we heard, "Mac, you get him down here right now." Looked down, there was my mom. And I got down.
And for recreation for the surfmen and the Coast Guards that were here, they had the surf boat and they rowed it. They had competitions up and down Green Bay, Sturgeon Bay, Kewaunee, whatever, would go someplace in the bay and they would have races. My dad was pretty broad-shouldered and powerful. He was a good rower, and they had sculling, is that?
Sculling.
Yeah, a helmsman, and Plum Island won quite often, and that was always exciting.
Yeah.
Did you swim? Where did you swim? Where was your swimming beach?
Right here.
Yeah, but it's not the same, is it, Joe?
No, but that doesn't look too bad over there. I wanted to walk over there. They brought a dog, a puppy, part German Shepherd, out. Formal training, that dog would allow me and my brothers, my two sisters, come so far to the water's edge, and then he would bark fiercely. My mom would come and get us. She really never worried about us toddlers and being nearby the water. But I also learned early on from my dad about at least learning how to do the dog paddle and not being on the dock, except when I fell in, because all the mothers and ladies were swimming.
You probably ruined it for me.
I probably
Plum
did.
Island is known as home of the pine snake, which is a fox snake. But on the island, we always call them pine snakes. And they'd be 7, 8 feet perhaps.
Is that the green stripe on the back?
I can't tell you. I was going the other way when I was well, this would be about right, because I remember the trees. Then it would be another one almost opposite the trees. And then there would be 2 more.
Of course, these trees 40 years ago may not have even been
They
here.
were very small, but there was a knot. I remember, because when the war started, the guys made me a little submachine gun out of some 2x4s.
Oh.
And I set it up next to, like, baby cedar trees, or birch trees. And when anybody come down the path, I'd shoot them.
I'm sure this is close to the area where the house was that I was born in, which had no running water, no electricity, and it had a little back door with a porch on it. And then you went into a living room that was fair-sized and 1 bedroom. An outhouse was over there.
And the garden was back here, you said?
I think so. Because the bowl could break ice, we would get in the bowl to go to the store, to go visit my grandparents or whatever needed to be done on that. And you would go as far as you could break ice. And when you couldn't break ice anymore, they handed us out onto the ice and we walked the rest of the way. And we were usually trying to get to where the potato dock is, because the potato dock lies a little closer. But most interesting is when my mom got married in 1929, her home was in Washington Harbor. She walked from Washington Harbor to Detroit Harbor. My dad met her. They walked across the ice to come to this little house. Can you imagine? What a honeymoon. But she was a real pioneer,
Yeah.
a real one. The last of the Vikings, I called her.
Yeah.
She made every piece of clothes I ever owned until I was 12 years old and we were out in New York. I thought it was the biggest day in my life when I could go to the store and buy a little suit. But she made all the clothes for the outside clothes, not the underwear. But she usually did it with clothing that was handed to her, and she tore apart, pressed it out, and did all this without a pattern.
360 degrees.
There was no stopping her for anything and everything. There was no such word as can't in her language. You can do it if you want to. And everything else, if something happened, it's okay, it could be worse. And I don't know how to say it in Swedish. I want to learn that because I keep telling my kids and my grandkids that. It could be worse.